Welcome to Timberline Bass Podcast, your place for Wisconsin bass fishing and everything outdoors.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Timberline Bass Podcast. Tonight we are going to do a deep dive into the CWBA. We couldn't do that without the man running the show himself. So without further ado, here's Mr. Craig Kloth. How's it going, Craig?
Good. Nice to talk to you, Dalton.
Yeah, you too. I definitely you run I think what most people think of around here is kind of the quintessential team trail. I know my dad and Scott have fished it for years, and there's a lot of who's who around here that fishes with you. So I wanted to get you on here and kind of pick your brain a little bit.
Sounds good. We'll see what I know.
First off, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I guess basically I started fishing when I was old enough to hold a rod and reel, obviously. Basically, my family, we go camping every weekend. So basically, my dad was a big fisherman. He would take us out in their little 14-foot aluminum, and we chased bass, or mostly walleyes and actually panfish. But now I kind of just mostly bass. Once in a while, I'll go out and fish for panfish, but mostly a bass fisherman. Been married to my wife, Darla, for 27 years. We have one daughter named Kirsten. She's married. And we also have one kind of a spoiled GSP here that's about a year and a half of years old. So
Cool. What really drew your interest to tournament fishing? I mean, you kind of grew up in that heyday of when Bassmasters was getting big. Was that kind of what drew you into it?
Actually, I think when I was younger, I got Bassmaster magazine probably in the 90s. I started as early 90s and subscribed to that. And you follow the trail back then. Just by the magazine, you didn't see it on TV much or anything. So mid 90s, friend Buck Smith, him and I were good friends from high school and everything. And we lived together, and we decided to go fish our local club tournament. It was called the Backlash Anglers. They're still around today. They've been, that's 30 plus years that organization's been around. It's our local club. It was multi-species back then. So you were allowed to use live bait, and, but it was a little different. And last year was finally the first year they voted to get rid of the multi-species. And now they are actually just a bass only club. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so we went on our first tournament. It was Lake Wassa, and we didn't have a clue where to go. We didn't even have a map of the lake, I don't think. And if you know Lake Wassa, it's a little shady getting around on that Wisconsin River, So we jumped in. He had a 15-foot, 16-foot maybe fishing ski. Wasn't ideal to fish out of, but had a 70 on the back, and it had a live well, so away we went. But we ended up fishing Lake Wassa, like I said, but we ended up heading north. We didn't know where to go, and we're like, there's a bridge up there. Let's go fish up there. We followed a guy. We thought, well, he knows where he's going because he's fished this lake before, and he took his lower unit out on the way up there. It was Tim Richling. His son Brandon still fishes the Backlash and fishes a few of mine. But yeah, so we were like, we better idle. But it was interesting, but that was what kind of got us hooked, and we fished that for quite a few years, before we decided to go off on our own and start something different.
What would you say are some of your favorite Wisconsin lakes?
I actually, like, as a competition wise, I was always a big fan of Lake Mohoskin. We fished up on Mohoskin probably for 15 years, the first 15, 16 years of the CWBA. Buck and I always were very competitive on that lake. Later on my tournaments, Jamie Strebig, him and I always did well up there too for the first few years that we still stayed there and fished. But that was competitive wise, that was probably one of my favorite lakes. And then otherwise, I just like to go to new lakes a lot and just go check them out. And that's kind of my favorite thing to do. I go to Vilas County a lot and hit all them little puddles over there and all the little small lakes. Awesome smallmouth fishing up that way. So do that once in a while. Kind of what I like to do.
What would you say is kind of your favorite technique or style of fishing?
I'm still kind of old school. I still like to flip a jig. It's kind of what I put in my hand probably to start the day every time. I mean, unless we find something different in pre-fishing, but most of the time I got a jig in my hand, and that's probably a downfall because I probably keep it in my hand too long some days, but I think we all do that at some point.
Yep. What would you say the biggest lesson tournament fishing as a whole has taught you, even throughout the rest of your life?
Uh, Basically to stay positive. It's tough to do on some days, but you know, you got to be patient and you learn to be patient and frustrated all in one some days, but it probably teaches you a lot in life too, because, you just got to keep working and work hard at it and eventually you'll have good results.
Good deal. I say that's a pretty good lesson. Um, Tell us a little bit about the Central Wisconsin Bass Anglers. Like, how did it get started?
Well, like I said, we fished at Backlash Anglers, and Buck and I dabbled in we fished a few opens out on Miller. Barry Henderson out of Ladysmith, he ran a couple big opens, and they were back in the mid '90s, and I want to say they were like, the one was like $250 to get in way back then.
Oh
So
wow.
they were paying out $4,000 or $5,000. I think I donated to Steve Menz a few times out there, but he was pretty much on the money out there most of the time. So, but like I said, we fished a Backlash. We just kind of wanted to branch out and do like something bass only. So we didn't want to like take away from the Backlash because it was still our local club, but we still fished it. But Mike Carsonson, Pat Emmerich, Buck Smith, and I were the four that started it, and we just kind of like didn't have an idea on how to even gain anglers. I reached out to a series, I believe it was called the ABA back in the day, and they quit running tournaments. So I reached out to their tournament director and asked him if he had some type of mailing list, and he sent me his mailing list, and I sent out about 100 flyers that year. And first two tournaments, I think we were lucky to have 7 or 8 boats, But I think the third tournament was our Miller Dam one. We started on Lake Tomahawk, that Minocqua area. We thought we could probably draw some guys up that way, but had seven. I think we had 7 boats, and then the next one, I can't even remember if that one was Lake Wasota, I believe, and we had like 8 boats, and then we went to Miller. I think we had 15 or 20, and then second year we finally, we got more guys interested locally, and we started to have a following, and I think the next year we had 15, 20 boats for all of them. Even I think Miller might have been even close. We only ran 30 boats back then, so.
Yeah, I suppose I never really thought of that, back in the days before social media, how much harder it would be to get a club or a tournament trail off the ground.
Yeah, you did. We had nothing. I mean, it was interesting, but yeah, we ended up getting it going. And like I said, the second year we gained 15, 20 boats per, and the word of mouth is what actually spread, and went, I would go to some sports shows, and once in a while we'd have some flyers we'd hand out or whatever, but it was hard.
Hmm. How would you say the CWBA, I'm sorry, CWBA has changed over the years?
Uh, Honestly, we've been sticking to what we do best, just run a grassroots tournament more or less. We started out with 8 fish, and since then we've gone down to 6. We only ran 8 fish for like the first 5 years. Um, Entry fees were $125, I think, when we started, and now they're 150. So they're way behind on inflation, but it keeps it so that anybody can come fish. They can afford them. We've expanded to 30 from 30 to 40 boats. Otherwise, like I said, not much. We haven't changed. I mean, rules, not a lot. I mean, it's more or less just we expanded to the 6 lakes instead of 4. One each month in the summer is what we normally run. So this year we're fishing Long Lake up in Washburn, Red Cedar, and then we go to Miller Dam this next weekend. This Saturday we go to Miller Dam, Big Chautauqua, and then Chippewa Flowage and LCO. So yeah, most of them are full. The Chippewa Flowage is the only tournament we actually have some openings in. most tournaments I have every year have been full for the last 15, 20 years. So that's kind of nice.
Do you pick different lakes every? I mean, you kind of run the same lakes for the most part, right? And switch
Yeah.
a few out every year.
I try to switch one, maybe two. Sometimes we'll run it back, the next year, but or just switch the lakes around and get them on different dates so that the lakes fish different. I think this year we moved the Miller tournament. Last year it was in September. This year we moved it to July. Chippewa Flowage last year was in September, or in July. We moved that to September, hoping it would fish better. The numbers were down a little bit, and we thought maybe a fall tournament up on the Chippewa would be kind of cool. But like I said, we're not quite full. I think we're at 35 boats, so either way, we'll still have a good tournament. Got a long ways to wait. We might have it full by then.
Right. What do you think makes the CWBA different from a lot of the other trails around Wisconsin?
Um, I guess that mostly that we just like a lot of longevity. I mean, there's been a lot of trails that have come and gone. I mean, most of them when we started, they're all gone, and then now there's still a lot of them that kind of come and go. But I don't know. We just try to run a good organization and be fair, and I guess that's about it.
Yeah, I mean that's through the years doing this, like you said, there's been a lot of come and go, and you could always hear the grumblings and everything coming from some of them. And I've honestly never heard a bad word said about the CWBA. I mean, you guys run a pretty tight ship. You treat everybody good. And like you said, it's a reasonable entry fee to get in, enough where you're
Mm-hmm.
still making something if you win, but
Yeah.
it's not going to break the bank.
Yep. It's
Are there
100%.
any memorable moments you can think of from your tournaments that really stand out over the years?
Well, I guess when you look at it, we probably ran almost close to 150 tournaments over the years. I mean, it's a lot of tournaments to run. As a CWBA organization, probably one thing that sticks out was kind of cool last year. We had Big Chautauqua. We did our 25th anniversary. We had a celebration. We just picked Big Chautauqua because we had probably fished that lake the most out of the 25 years, and it has a nice shelter there that we could host something. Our wives helped out, all four of them. Well, one of them his fiance, but Zach Carstensen and his fiance Courtney helped, and then Mike and Denise Carstensen, and then my wife Darla. And then we camped with like 3-4 other anglers every year, and for most of the tournaments, and their wives and family actually came to help out too, because they were, we're together with them every weekend for tournaments. So it's pretty cool. We put on burgers and hot dogs and gave out canned koozies and just a little something in appreciation for everybody. So that was all pretty cool. As far as remembering, like individual things from tournaments, I guess one thing that probably sticks out was probably, I don't know, it had been over 10 years ago already. We had a young angler. He called me and he wanted to fish a tournament. And I told him you have to have somebody that's 18 to run the boat. And he's like, well, I can run the boat, because he was 15 or something at the time. And his name was Kevin Rue. You possibly heard of him. He still fishes La Crosse area quite a bit. He's a river rat down there. He's one of the better anglers down there on the river. But he finally called me back and said my grandpa agreed to drive the boat and take me for the tournament. So that was kind of cool, just talking to him on the phone and stuff. And then he ended up winning Big Bass of the day. And I think he had a 6.5 pounder. And his grandpa said he caught it all by himself. He didn't. I don't even know if he netted it, but it was pretty cool. That's just something that kind of sticks out, because it's kind of fun to see a young kid be successful. And then the tournament bug bit him, and he's been fishing tournaments ever since. Because I don't know if he's from La Crosse, but I know he lives down there now. But he probably went to school down there. But I see he fished the nation down there and stuff. So shout out to Kevin. I still follow him on social media. Keep track of him.
Cool. Yeah, that's really nice knowing that you played a part in, kind of starting a fishing career like that.
Yeah.
At what point does planning for the next season actually begin for you?
Usually October, our last tournament, I don't touch nothing until mid-December. I start thinking about it, but I gotta dig around and look at everybody's tournaments from last year, the year before, and look at their dates. Anybody that affects my area, especially. But I've had like good relationships with all these other anglers, or all these tournament directors. So over the years, we just kind of get together. I call a few of them on the phone once in a while, and we discuss our dates and stuff. But usually mid-December, I try to, and then January, I'm getting my permits in, and then I try to get my flyers out. Sometimes, usually by the end of January, but sometimes it's a little later. But yeah, busy life too.
Well, and the permit thing is really interesting too. I take care of all that for the Marshfield Bass Club, and
Yep.
I would definitely say it's gotten a little bit easier, but that can be an undertaking in and of its own, especially when you're pulling for as many as you are.
Yeah, I pull 6 a year, and you do it all online. So each one you got to fill out separate, and it's repetitive, but it's like it's pretty easy because they have it, down to what questions need to be asked and stuff, so that what lakes and dates and how many boats and the payouts and but it's you pay $50 per tournament, and then once you hit submit, then you just got to wait for your fish biologist that's for that county, for that lake. They're the ones that approve it, and mostly it's usually cut and dried. I don't usually have an issue, because I try to get mine out early enough, my dates, so that it doesn't affect, because a lot of clubs are always calling me they'll ask me what my dates are so that they can set their club tournaments around, because most of their anglers want to fish mine, so.
Yeah. How much time goes into just organizing a single event, getting, I'm assuming if you guys want to have a weigh-in at a certain spot or something like
Yep.
that, does that take up a lot of time too?
I guess, yeah, because once you get your flyers out, you got to do all the mailings, and do all my address labels, and then I get them sent out, and within 3-4 days, I'm usually getting flooded with entries already, and I open up each one individually, and I got to write down to what lake they're going to be fishing and keep track, because we run open, so they're not fishing all of them, and that's the part that I'm nervous about most, because I don't want to screw up and miss somebody, and then not have them in a draw or something, and but for the most part, then we have a drawing for our takeoff, and like usually we try to do that, end of March, or I don't know, I think our deadline, what is it, April 1st or something, to have our entries in. So usually right around April 1st, we do our drawing then for takeoffs, and basically start cashing the checks when the dates come. So
Yeah. Yeah, because you hold on to the checks till right before the tournament is
I
how
will.
you guys. Okay.
I allow people to backdate them. I mean, it's more of a pain because I got to run to the bank for every tournament. I just can't go cash them all at once. But I have cancellations too sometimes, and it actually works out pretty decent because I can just tear their check up, and I find the next guy on the list, and I'm pretty lenient on that compared to some other series. If somebody cancels within 2 weeks, our rules say that we keep the money, but most of the time, if I have somebody on the waiting list, I will try my hardest to fill it, and then I give their money back. But there's a lot of guys want to keep their spot for next year, and they'll just say keep the money and fish with it. So that works all right too. So.
So being the tournament director, what responsibilities do you have during the day while everybody else is, I mean, you're out fishing too while everybody's fishing. What responsibilities do you have?
And morning of the tournament, my goal is to be at the landing or wherever, at the resort, or wherever we're doing the weigh-in and the takeoff, at least 90 minutes before, because we got 40 boats to get checked in. Some of them are nice because we can stand on a dock and they can just drive past us, and we can check their live wells and give them their number tag for their takeoff, and then they also use that for their weigh-in, so we can identify them. But we just put a ribbon on their trolling motor, and basically that's it. And then they just float, and then we do have a meeting on the water. I have to use my loud voice to have everybody hear me, but usually it works out all right. And if anybody has any questions, they can quick ask them then too. So. like you said though, I do fish the tournaments, so
yeah,
that's
yeah,
I
that
love fishing tournaments, so that's why we do it.
yeah, and I always feel bad for the organizations where the guys running it can't. Some guys feel obligated that they can't fish them too, and to me, that would take all the fun out of doing it. I'm
Yeah,
into this because I enjoy fishing. Um, what would you say
yeah.
is more stressful, the weigh-in or the tournament morning?
Um, I guess kind of both. I guess because most of the time in the morning, I'm nervous that I have the paperwork correct, got the right guys in the right lake, and all of a sudden somebody shows up and they're not on the paperwork. Haven't had it happen, but knock on wood, I don't want it to happen. But you just don't want to miss something. But then the weigh-in is, got to keep things moving. Yeah, just you get stressed out just to make sure everything runs smoothly. And, most of the guys that fish the tournaments, they all know what they're doing. They make it easy for us, so that kind of helps out a lot.
Yeah. Can you think of anything that anglers don't really think of that a tournament director has to deal with? Little things that make your life a little harder when guys don't think about it.
Well, in the off season, I'm doing paperwork when they're probably out ice fishing. Um, and then when you do the paperwork before the season, during the tournament, and then after the tournament, you got to do more paperwork because you have to turn in all your results to the DNR after you're done too. So that's something a lot of anglers don't realize that we do too. So
Yeah, do you have any tournaments you can think of off the top of your head that just everything seemed to go wrong? Anything that really stands out?
nothing big. We never had any real major issues during a tournament. Um, like I said, we try to have everything organized and done. Um, we do carry two scales. Yeah, if you ever have a glitch on a scale, at least we have a backup. We had one that wouldn't settle out one day, and we had to end up sending it back and having it recalibrated. So we had a backup scale though, so we were ready. I don't know what else we'd do. We'd have to probably use the hand scale, but I don't think that's would be as accurate. But
Uh, Sorry, I didn't have this question written down at all, but I don't know if you've seen what Bubba's got coming out now with their scales. They partnered with MLF. They're bringing their score tracker thing out, so it'll be it essentially works the exact same way as it does on TV when they run like an every fish counts or when they ran the 5 fish
mm-hmm.
format. Do you see a future where, that's kind of the way to do it?
So you're saying that when they weigh a fish, it automatically goes into like a software
Yeah, yep,
for the
because
tournament
they've got an
headquarters?
app. Yeah,
That would be great. But you also, there's like our tournaments. A lot of guys are just starting out. We got, they don't. Not all of them have a ton of money to go buy stuff. I would like to see how much them cost, but because like the regular Bubba scale is probably 250, 260 bucks, I'd imagine. But most guys that fish
yeah.
tournaments, money's not an object. They all got $8,000 electronics on their boats anyway. So
Yeah, because we've kind of been talking about that with our club a little bit too. It would be neat to do an every fish counts tournament, but how do you
mm-hmm.
like you said, how do you expect everybody to go buy a $200 scale? Just I think
Yeah.
eventually we'll
Oh,
get to that point, but
yeah.
it
Bubba's are awesome scales. It's just, I seen Rapala or whatever you want to call it. They just came out with one. It's similar to uh, Bubba's, but I don't know if it does the software thing yet. But I don't know how that's going to work because we still have a size limit on our tournaments too. They got to be 14 inches. Well, somebody technically could weigh a 13 and 7/8, and by weight you're
yep,
not going to know it. But
right.
you could do a weight minimum like you do like the Bass Pro Tour does, I guess.
Yeah, like a 1 pound minimum or
Yeah,
something
I
like
want to.
that.
Yeah, you'd probably have to do something like that instead of a size limit, I guess.
Yeah, because I noticed too, it kind of looks like the DNR is preempting this a little bit. Because I noticed when I was pulling permits this year, they actually um, they ask if it's a catch weigh release tournament. Where before, if you did it that way, you could kind of skirt around needing a permit just because the way it was written. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Wisconsin DNR sometimes ain't the best organization. I don't want to diss on them because they work with me, but they're not the best organization when it comes to bass tournaments. I mean, some of these other states, they cater to the bass tournaments and they want to bring them in where, Wisconsin's a little more strict on it, over the years. With their culling, they finally got that straightened out, but there was a lot of other things in the past too.
yeah, it seems like they have a very love-hate relationship with bass fishing.
Yeah.
What part of running a trail would you say gives you the most satisfaction? Sorry, I
Yeah.
can't talk.
Um, Probably when you're done at the end of the day, just hanging out with all the other anglers. We do supply refreshments after the tournaments usually, except for the ones that we run at resorts. But um, hanging out with the guys, I mean, it's kind of fun. Got to know a lot of guys over the years and became really good friends with most of them. So that's probably the best part about running tournaments.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think that's, there's something special about the regional trails and the little clubs. I mean, the camaraderie, I think, is what brings
Yep.
more guys back than anything with stuff like that. Um, so why in your opinion are tournament rules so detailed? I mean, this is kind of a common sense one, but I feel like it's definitely a good topic to bring up. With everything going on with Bassmasters right now, the rules have kind of been center stage for a while. So what's your opinion on why rules are so detailed?
Got to keep the playing field even. Most of our rules, we follow a lot of the bigger fishing tournaments. When I look up bass tournaments in Alabama, I look up bass tournaments in South Carolina, other clubs. I kind of just Google a lot of their tournament rules, and a lot of them have flyers out online or on Facebook or something, and just read them, scan through them, see what's different on them. For the most part, every tournament kind of runs similar. You just got your size and your safety rules and size rules, and I guess like I said, we follow the Bass Pro Tour and the Bassmasters. They make a big change. Years ago it was the umbrella rig. I mean, they all banned it. Now, well, we better ban it too. So I don't know. It's nowadays you could probably put that back in because they're watching them on TV, catching them instead anyway. So, you know, I don't know. One bait.
Have you had a lot of pushback to do anything with forward facing sonar or anything like that? Or does it seem like guys are pretty mellow about it around here?
On our tournaments, a 40 boat tournament, if there's 5 boats that don't have it, you're probably lucky. It's pretty much my boat personally, I don't have it on my boat. I fish with we've been using Jamie's boat. He's got it on his. Um, that's probably why I haven't bought it, because he's got it. So um, I still like to fish old school. So I don't know. But as far as the live scope, right now we don't have any plans of making any changes, and until some of these big organizations really have a pushback, I guess we probably won't either. But uh, right now we'll just keep it. Everybody invested in it. I think we would just push our anglers away if we banned it. I think we would probably end up with 10 boats. So
Yeah, and that's the hard part. I mean, it's like you said, 90% of the time, even a lot of the younger guys are fishing old school. I definitely don't feel that it plays as much in Wisconsin as it does other places in the country.
no, I agree.
I mean, it makes some things more efficient, but it's definitely not the cheat code a lot of people like to pretend it is.
Yeah, Jamie and we're still. He's kind of old school too, and we use it to find weed lines and stuff. That kind of stuff. But we don't like. We probably don't target fish as much as we should. I don't know. That's probably we haven't been as successful since it came out, so maybe that's probably why we maybe we need to learn it a little better.
Oh,
But
no, I totally feel you there, though. I mean, there's a lot of days I get lost in that stupid screen.
yeah,
Next thing you know, you're chasing a fish around for a half an hour and you wasted
hmm
a half hour on nothing.
yeah, it's no different than looking at one on a bed and playing with it for 2 hours.
Yeah. Um, how often would you say that you guys really have to go through and look at the rules and change anything? I mean, it's probably been pretty much the same for the history
Yeah.
of the club. Yeah,
Yeah, we haven't made very few changes. We kind of set our rules when we first started. I probably redid some wording. That's about it. I mean, for the most part, most of our anglers all know the rules. Mostly it's DNR rules that you got to follow, you know. So,
yeah.
except for some of the size limits and stuff, but
How do you guys balance keeping things fair and making sure the rules aren't overly complicated? Like you said, wording is a big thing. You're always going to have somebody
yeah,
looking for a gray area, but
yeah, you know, there's always somebody that's trying to get an advantage. So, but for the most part, uh, like I said, we don't have any live scope rules or anything. So our rules are basically just the basic rules. I mean, life jackets are for safety and kill cords, and uh, you know, most of the guys all know the rules. Some guys don't read the rules, and that's probably the ones that break them. So because they don't know them, you know.
right. Yeah, and I think a lot of us take that for granted nowadays too. I grew up fishing tournaments. I can honestly say I probably don't look through the rules for every tournament I fish because we take for granted that they're pretty much all the same.
Yeah.
But do you ever find any rules that seem to be very commonly misunderstood?
Mm, not really. I mean, like I said, we keep try to keep things simple. I can't really come up with one that really, you know, no, not really. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good.
Nothing really sticks up with the rules. I mean, that people, because we don't actually, in the years that we've been running our tournaments, I probably disqualified 4 or 5 anglers, you know, if I'm lucky, if it was 4 or 5. I mean, there's not been a lot.
Yeah. Do, how do you guys handle protests between anglers? I'm sure that
Um,
really doesn't pop up
yeah,
very often either.
no, once in a while it does. I mean, I'll have guys come up to me and say stuff after the tournament. We have it in our rules that you have 15 minutes to give us a written protest. If you know, and I've had protests where the guy didn't get into money. I mean, I can DQ him, you know, on the spot, but it didn't matter. It didn't affect the results of the tournament anyway. But if we do get a written protest, us 4 guys that run it, Mike and Zach and Jamie and I, we'll discuss it with that angler that's doing the accusation, and then we will approach the other angler, and it's like you talk to him, you know, see what he says. You know, sometimes they're truthful and they'll say, yeah, we did that. And then the next guy, he'll argue about it. But we try to keep the 2 anglers away from each other, one that's protesting and one that's not. We did have some arguments one year. That's not too much fun. I don't like to play referee in the middle. So, but most of the time, most of the anglers are all good. I mean, I had I had a team that I had to DQ once a long time ago. It was probably 20 years ago. It was a friend of mine, and he was fishing with a young guy that was like 13 years old, and he was turned in for not wearing a life jacket. Well, neither of them were wearing life jacket going across Miller Dam. So it's like I asked him about it, and actually I sent Buck over there to do it. And but he asked them, and he's like, "Yeah, we did that." And we had more than one team actually tell us that they weren't wearing life jackets. So it was more than one team protesting. And we just told him to dump his fish and not bring him up to the weigh-in, and he was good about it. And he still talks about it to this day, I guess. But because I thought he had a good bag, and it's like you hate to do it, but that's like a safety rule. That's especially one that you should follow, especially with a kid in the
Yeah,
boat. But yeah,
absolutely.
he was good about it though. That's the main thing. But
And I will say that is definitely, even just in running the club or whatever. I mean, that is the hardest part is having to call somebody out on stuff, especially when they want to
yeah,
argue or whatever. But most guys are pretty good to cop up if they do something.
yeah, honestly, yeah, because something like that, he knew he was guilty, but it's like, well, it's just part of the rules.
Yeah. Um, so I've been curious about this. The I think it was last year where it was an MLF event where that boat had hit the other boat in the channel. It wasn't a good thing. Have you guys seen any ramifications coming from that? I know people were really freaked out for a while.
Yeah. But there was a lot of rumors on that one when it first came out, but then it actually had video footage. I remember
Yeah.
seeing it, and it was horrible. Um, there was rumors that was foggy, well, it wasn't. So, but
No.
we, we try to keep those, like, make sure people keep their life jackets on when the big motor's running, kill switches on. We have Big Shatak is one example. We put in quite a few years ago when we take off from Doolittle Park on Birch Lake. Well, it's like a 1 mile run to get to the channel. And one of the years, the guys were racing over to that channel to get to the channel first, to the no wake zone. Well, we put it in the rules. There was no passing in Birch Lake. We put a 40 or 45 miles per hour speed limit on it. And years ago, we did that 30 years ago on Otter Lake. We put a 30 mile an hour, 35 mile an hour speed limit on Otter because you come around some of them islands, it's narrow over there. We just put a small speed limit on for all day, and there's guys that complain, because they bought a boat with a 250 on it. They want to use it, but there's families out there. You just can't let them run around and, come around a corner and hit somebody with a 14-foot boat with their 2 little kids in it. You can't let that happen. So yeah, we try to keep things as safe as possible. The guys that are running the boat, they're responsible for it. So they got to have common sense when they're out there running.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is the hard part, too. Nowadays, with the world the way it is, I mean, unfortunately, it seems so easy when something dumb happens to try to take the liability off the person who did it, and
Yeah,
it's a scary thing. I was
it
just
is.
curious if you guys had seen anything come through or not. I mean, we haven't had
Not in
too many
particular. We
issues.
haven't had too many issues. I mean, we do make guys carry insurance, just like every other organization. But like you said, it's always the organization. Sometimes they after, but
Yeah. Oh, did I lose you? Alrighty. So after some technical difficulties there, how do you guys handle weather decisions?
for the most part, when we get to the landing, I kind of keep an eye on the weather. But I usually have the radar up if I know there's going to be storms in the area. Um, I guess other on some tournaments we've delayed, due to lightning or to storms, and that's pretty common. That happens every once in a while, and we don't extend the day. We're still going to do the weigh-in at the 3:30 or whatever. Um, Fog is another beast that we have to deal with. Fog, we've done it where we've sat back at the landing because we thought it was going to clear in an hour, so we waited an hour, and the fog was still there. So it's like we decided that year let's idle out. So we made
Yeah.
everybody. That was at Miller Dam, I believe, and we idled out. And nobody could see their hand in front of their face, but nobody was allowed to get on plane until the fog completely lifted. Not that I'd be able to see who it was because we couldn't see, but you can hear boats out there and stuff. But it was good. We never hurt anybody until the fog lifted. But we did that at Tech Chain one year too. We idled out. You still get a couple guys. They'll complain. It's like it's going to take me a half hour to get to my fishing spot. Well, we could sit here an hour and the fog could still be here. So, at least you can go fishing somewhere closer and get going.
Yeah.
But yeah. But you just hate to see somebody run on somebody, but because it ain't just us tournament anglers out there in the morning. There's other people out there fishing, families and stuff. So you just don't need somebody to get run over.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things a lot of people take for granted. They're public waterways. We share them with other
Yeah,
people, and I've got a hard time explaining that to some of our guys too. We almost have a responsibility to be more worried about them than each other.
correct. Yeah, so I know Tech Chain was another example that year. A storm came through the middle of the day, and Jamie and I went straight to the boat landing. We weren't too far from it, and it was by that water ski show dock. And we sat underneath the eave, and when we got there, Mike and Zach were sitting there already. And it was the 4 tournament committee guys that were sitting there taking cover, and we watched boats out there fishing in the lightning all for the next hour and a half. And We sat there and waited it out. We tell people to get off the water and, to take cover if it's lightning. That's the only thing I can do. We don't have it in our rules that you have to get off,
Yeah.
but it's common sense that you should get off, so. But
Yeah,
that's when the fish fight, they say so.
yeah. But there's nothing freakier when you're out there fishing and all of a sudden your line starts humming when you cast, it
Yeah,
should be a pretty good indicator to get off the water.
that's when I'm packing up and I'm gone.
Yeah.
No.
We'll kind of touch on some conservation stuff here a little bit. How important is fish care to the CWBA?
Well, we're bass anglers, so that's what we fish for. And if you don't take care of them, they're not going to be there tomorrow. So it's very important to the CWBA. We've tried to come up with better ideas and different ways. Years ago, we used to release our own fish or release fish for everybody. We had tanks we'd put on the back of our boats, and we would idle out and put them out, in deeper water along weed lines or whatever. And that got to be a lot of work though, because it was just the four of us, and there were some tournaments where there was way too many fish in our tanks. We had some big pumps running them, but it's just got to be a lot of work, and so we kind of gave up on that. But so we just do the little things on our way in, try to keep the lines moving, and did some design work on our sink. I mean, just a little thing like that. We put our ruler right down to the floor of the sink so that you can check for length right in the sink without taking the fish and trying to put it on a table and measure it. I built a stainless steel chute. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's actually on the side of our tank or our sink. And all we do is have a little slide door. We open it and we put the bag right under it. We just slide the fish right out the chute and into the bag. Less handling, trying to grab each one by the mouth and stuff. We can take and check them on the bump board and shove them right out the door and right into the bag they go. So then we can quick weigh them and then get them right back into the water. It's a lot less bouncing around in the sink. They're in and out right within a couple seconds. It works pretty good, actually. I had a lot of guys ask me about it. I mean, probably should patent it maybe, huh?
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of clubs out there and organizations that could use that.
Yeah. It's just something so simple, but yet it just takes care of the fish because you're not handling, you just kind of slide them out. You don't even have to try to lip them and get them in that bag. And, I see then they're dropping them on the ground, and you see it all the time.
Yeah. And that's, with their slime coat and everything, it's really important. The less you can bang them around on stuff, the better off they are.
Yeah. Yeah, in our sink, we put a valve on it to hold the water so that when the guy gets his bag there, we open the valve and then he can fill his bag back up with the water, Little things like that actually just probably help, because that way we make sure they get that water back in so that when they're taking them back down to release them, they take care of them good. But just to mention, this weekend we're at Miller, and I am going to make a speech in the morning. And part of that's going to be that I don't want anybody loading their boat because we got such high temperatures out there right now. And I don't want anybody loading their boat and leaving. I mean, their live wells today are phenomenal to keep fish alive, but I just don't want that extra time where the temperatures can increase. But that way their boat's still in the water when they release. I'm going to ask ask the anglers to take them offshore and release them, to make sure that they go back into some cooler water. They can get into deeper water and be in cooler water too, So that's one thing I'm doing this weekend because I know the water temps are going to be in the 80s this weekend. So try to take care of them.
That's a big thing too. I know guys take that for granted. Yeah, it's easy to just go dump them off the end of the dock, but how often after there's been a tournament do you roll up where they had the weigh in and there's a bunch of fish floating? I mean,
yeah, that doesn't look good for the organizations. I mean, I've never heard anybody complain back to me on one of ours, but I've seen I had a guy come send me pictures from Miller Dam and asked me if we had a tournament out there, and I said no, and he had some floating fish pictures, and it looks horrible for the organizations, and for us.
Yeah.
It's just, it all goes back to us, and that's where people, they hate bass tournaments the way it is. A lot of people and the lake associations, and not all of them, but a lot of them do, and it's just reflects poorly on us. So.
And that's the worst part too. I definitely wouldn't say that we have a mortality issue in our sport. I mean, honestly, in bass fishing, we do such a good job of catch and release. Um, Not on all lakes, but most lakes. I mean, the fish are pretty well left alone and cared for.
Yeah,
Um, so at the end of the day, do a couple floaters after a tournament actually hurt anything? No, but it visually it looks bad.
it does. And today's uh, day and age, there's no reason why you can't put an additive in your water. Keeps the stress,
Yep.
keeps the stress down. It settles them, and then it also keeps their slime on their skin, and it all helps. And there's still the guys that I see every morning. They come with their bags of ice and put it in their cooler, and they add ice during the day to keep the temps down in their live wells. I think the live wells nowadays, if you've got a boat that's within 5, 6 years old or 10 years old, they do a good job of putting oxygen. There's probably more oxygen in that live well than there is in some of the lakes in the summertime. You know,
Yep. Yeah,
but
and another thing too, like we've got one this weekend on Tomahawk, a lot of them
yep,
smallies are going to be caught out of 30, 40 foot of
mm,
water. I
yep,
mean, our guys really got to consider fizzing some of them fish too. That's
yeah.
another big one guys don't
That's
think
something I've
about.
never done. I mean, but usually our lakes that we fish aren't quite that deep, but I know red cedar, them fish can get pretty deep. But usually it's earlier in the year, so probably the water temps aren't so bad. Um, One thing that also is a good thing, I mean, I do it to my boat pretty regularly, is cleaning the live well. Uh,
Yep.
I just looked it up. I actually posted it on our CWBA page. It had to have been 10 years ago, or 6 years ago. It was a simple formula of vinegar and peroxide and filling it with water and letting it circulate for a half hour. And then all you do is you fill it back with water, dump it out and drain it, and then fill it back with water and circulate it for another half hour just to flush everything out again. But it's a natural and won't hurt nothing. And it's just, I think cleaning the live wells just helps because I think there's bacteria and you probably get rid of invasive species too.
Yep. Well, and the other thing too, guys don't think, I normally do a crappie trip once or twice a year. By the end of the day, no matter what you do, you end up with some crappies floating.
Yeah.
You got slime left over in the live well. All that stuff, bacteria is going to grow on it.
Yeah.
But the big thing, I've also seen guys try to clean their live wells with bleach before and not rinse it out all the way and then kill the whole next batch of fish because there was
Yeah. I've
bleach
heard of
left in
that
the
too.
lines.
Bleach is probably not your friend when it comes to live wells. If you do, you better keep it off the carpeting too. And then plus, make sure
Yeah.
you rinse everything really good. But you got to run your pumps and circulate it to get it out of those, because that's probably what they forget to do is they just fill it and then drain it again. But yeah, it's important to keep your live wells clean. And I think that helps the fish mortality rate. And if hopefully, maybe I should post that one again and tell the guys they should clean their live wells before Miller so we can have a less fish die.
Yeah. Yep, that's definitely should be a part of regular maintenance that a lot of guys don't think of.
Yeah,
What do you see that you think anglers could do better when handling fish?
yeah. Like you said, when you catch them deep, that's fizzing them. I personally never done it. I've seen it done, and watched videos and stuff. I don't have the kit even to do it, but more or less, I said just keep them live well pumps like on a day like this next Saturday. Keep them live well pumps running all day. Everybody's got lithium nowadays. You know,
Yep.
you're not going to run out of battery. You know, so I honestly I think just keep them live wells running all day. And I wouldn't even put them on timer on Saturday. I don't think.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. When the water's that warm, it's like you said with lithium batteries nowadays. I mean, most of the time when I get back to the boat ramp, just on my run back, my cranking battery's up to 100% already again. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, it's only running
it's
your
kind.
cranking battery and your, live wells. Usually, a lot of guys are running their electronics on a separate one nowadays. So,
Yeah, it's a shame that there's not. I mean, there is a lot of information out there on fizz and fish. You can watch the videos and stuff online, but it's a shame like Bass Pro Shop doesn't do kits or something like that.
yeah,
Um, not, like you said, not that a guy needs to do it very often, but if a guy had the resources there, because who thinks to go buy a bunch of hypodermic needles and keep, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah, they should
at
make
the end of
kits.
the,
They either
yeah.
do. I don't know.
I know in the Bassmaster events, they do give them out. There's a
Yeah,
lady who makes them, and you can buy them on her
they actually have
website.
training,
But
I think, too, for their anglers. So they have somebody. That lady actually, I think, shows them and trains them to
yep,
show them how to do it.
yep. Because it was watching her videos was how I learned to do it too. But
Yep.
it's one of those things guys don't think about until it happens, and then, well, shit, I don't know what I'm doing, and then you're scared to hurt the fish, and
Yeah.
but
Most you can
um,
do now though is just keep your pumps running. I mean, that's probably your best bet, and maybe some ice.
well, and in all honesty too, if a guy is uncomfortable doing it, even the fin weights are better than nothing.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
Do you feel like bass anglers kind of get an unfair reputation when it comes to conservation? I mean, it's to me, it's hard to wrap my head around it, but I have heard it before. Um, just your thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, uh, that's the thing. Like we said, we talked about it. Was like if you see fish floating, that's their. That's just gives them more ammunition to go after us. As at our organizations and lake associations would love to get rid of us sometimes. There's guys that are on the lake association that fish with us too. But for the most part, most of them they want to get rid of us. But they don't want us fishing their docks or they want to kill all the weeds and uh, yeah. We're not out there spraying weeds. We want the weeds, so
Right. Yeah, and that's the hard part too. I always got a hard time wrapping my head around the lake associations. I get you live there, you're paying taxes to live there, but at the end of the
yeah,
day, it is a public waterway. I mean,
yep,
we have just as much of a right to it as anybody else.
yeah. Big
Um,
Chautauqua, he's on that last year. It was so green in the like by August when we had our tournament, it had like a film on it. You didn't even want to touch it. You don't want to eat a sandwich out in the boat because you better have some hand wash. But I watched a guy that I watch guys they mow lawn. They're blasting their leaves into the lake, and in the fall, and it's like, well, that's where all them phosphoruses and stuff start. Fertilizers. And one guy was spraying weeds on his walkway down on Big Shatak that day, and I watched him. He walked out on his dock, and he was nice to me. We sat and chit chatted, but he took the sprayer and he sprayed it in the lake, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? You're spraying weed killer in the lake, And it's like I had him on video. He was nice to me.
and
He told me I could fish his dock, but well, yeah, I could fish your dock, but next year, I don't know. You're probably killing the fish that are around it with your weed killer.
and unfortunately, that's the one thing I noticed too with the people like that, the pontoon boater that gets too close or the jet ski that buzzes you. 90% of the time it's not even that they're trying to be a jerk. A lot of it comes
Yeah,
down to just unfortunate ignorance.
it is. But you know what? We have the guys on our side that are they, you know, they have to go 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour all day long. And I'm the type of guy. I'm older now. I'm by the afternoon. Maybe the morning we open it up and go across the lake, but by the afternoon we're going 40 miles an hour most of the day. We're not in a hurry. But
Yeah,
that's just us though.
yeah, well, and that's a little easier on the wallet right now too, to not be
Yeah, that's
doing
true.
70.
Yeah, that's true.
um so kind of get into growing tournament fishing. If someone has never fished a tournament before, why do you think they should give it a try?
Well, the thing about it, when you're done with high school, you're done with sports. Most people in America, they don't go on and play sports after high school. Competitive tournament fishing kind of is the next thing that you can do. I mean but nowadays it's in high school and college too. They're fishing tournaments. By the time they're 16, they're already fishing tournaments nowadays. But you know, back when I grew up, we didn't have any. I played a little bit of softball and stuff, but not much. But a couple of years, but then you needed something to fall back on. But it's a great competitive sport just to get into, and it's a lot of camaraderie with the guys. It's a lot of fun. So
What would you say the atmosphere is like at a CWBA event?
Well, most of the guys that fish our tournaments, probably 70% of them have fished, multiple years with us. So everybody knows each other. Uh, it's kind of gotten to be like a big fishing family. You look at the boards. Uh, it's kind of cool because we look at our CWBA board when it's out there. I mean, you look at the last names. There's probably 20 of them out of our 40 boats that the last names match. It's like brothers fishing together, or husband and wives, fathers and sons, and fathers and even daughters. I mean, we got a couple girls that fish with their dads, so that's kind of cool, because they, you know, uh, that's what kind of cool about any tournament, really, like grassroots. Just families can go out and fish together too.
And I would say you run a very competitive but still welcoming trail.
Yeah,
Definitely feels that way. I've jumped in. I think I've fished a couple of them now, either standing in for Scott and stuff like
yep.
that with my old man and stuff. And it is a very, I've
He's
fished
not that
tournaments
old.
before.
He's not
What's
that old.
that?
He's not any older than me. So
I've definitely gone to some events and stuff like, if you're not a part of the crowd, you definitely feel kind of, you know, odd man out, but it's never that way with your guys' events. Everybody's super nice, super friendly. You
yeah,
run a very good trail.
and we try to keep it fun. I don't want to be that type of director, and the other guys that help me. We like to sit and chit chat with the guys and make friends with them. We don't want to be that guy that's hard nosed. We follow our rules. We make sure that everybody else is following rules, but yet, like I said, I'm not so strict when it comes to canceling and stuff. I'm probably one of the easier ones on stuff like that because I try to find somebody to fill your spot. But with a new angler coming in, it can be intimidating out there because you got 40 boats sitting there floating, and they don't know how the takeoffs work. But but anybody can just jump in with a boat that fishes with a guy that's fished for 20 years, and learn the ropes, or for the first time, just ask questions. That's what we're there
Yeah.
for. If you don't understand on how something works, I'd rather have you ask. That way, So
Yeah. Oh, and that's something even I take for granted. I grew up fishing with dad. I never had that, you know, learning curve. I just grew up. That's what we always did. Um, so I can see where that's hard for guys just starting out.
yeah,
We'll get into some of the. Sorry, I'm going to buzz through some of the stuff a little bit. I don't want to hold
that's
you
fine.
too long. I didn't quite plan out my time here with the questions super
Well, we're all
good.
good.
What kind of payouts and awards can people, anglers expect with the CWBA?
Um, if we're full, we have 40 boats. We pay out 7 spots plus big bass award. First place is, if it's 40 boats, is $1,800, and I believe second place is still over 1,000. If you get big bass of the day with 40 boats in the tournament, you'll get $420. So um, it pays out fairly good. I mean, like I said, 7 spots.
Yeah, that's
One in
definitely a very respectable payout. Um, do you guys do a team of the year? There is no championship, right?
No, we just do the open thing, which it's just kind of how we chose to do it when we first started, and we stuck to it. There's other tournament trails that have the points, but I know guys like that. But ours, you can fish one or two and not have to worry about signing up for 6 tournaments. Because if you're new to it, you don't even know if you want to fish 6. So
Yeah, and you guys do a 6 fish limit, right?
correct.
So
Yep,
you
6
pretty
fish.
much you have to have a partner.
Yeah, we do that. We kind of moved it. We were 8, then we went to 6, and some guys say, "Why don't you go to 5?" Because I've had guys show up and their tournament partner couldn't make it. Well, aren't you 5 fish limit? I'm like, no, we're 6. And I said, you shot yourself in the foot, kind of, because you can only come in with 5, DNR rules.
Yeah.
But
What lakes are you excited about? Do you have any in mind that you're looking to add into the rotation, or anything you're looking at maybe doing in the next couple of years?
um, I don't know. I like the lakes we're on now, but we're always looking. But there's Wisconsin, where we kind of fish, is that western central Wisconsin. 53 corridor over there. There's not a lot of lakes big enough to host 40 boats, really. I mean, there's a few, but then am I going to get the guys to drive 2 hours to go fish a tournament? Most of my guys drive half hour or an hour, so
Yeah.
we've gone east. We've gone to Mohoskin. Years ago we used to go to Mohoskin for like 15 years, but I could not fill that tournament up. Maybe if I would have tried some other lakes over there, maybe it would have been different. But so we just kind of stuck to that western part. And if we did go to somewhere else, we went to Island Chain for a few years. That was kind of a fun little lake, but 40 boats on there, that on Island Chain, that can get pretty tight. So I think we limited that one to 30 or something. But Chetek Chain, maybe go back, but that got pounded so many years. Every year and all these lakes are getting to be that way because there's so many different clubs and different organizations. And, LCO, we were one of the first ones to kind of go there because the DNR relaxed that 18-inch size limit and let us in tournaments keep 14-inch fish just for tournaments. And that opened it up, and that was great because we were one of the first ones to go there. But now you look, there's probably 10 tournaments there. So
Yeah, we do tend to shoot ourselves in the foot there a little bit. As much as we've tried to grow the sport, there's days I miss when you could go on a Tuesday and not have to worry about 20 other boats out there.
Yeah. Now you got Tuesday night leagues and Thursday night leagues, and the lakes they take a hard hit all summer long.
Yeah. Where can people find schedules and information? Where do you want people to look if they're interested in fishing some of your tournaments?
They can either get a hold of me directly. My phone number, it's all right, probably to give it on here, 715-560-1155. Or you can find us on Facebook. We have a Central Wisconsin Bass Anglers page. I don't know if you search CWBA if it comes up or not. I'm sure it probably would. Or my page, I have a link to the CWBA page, Craig Kloth. So on top of my page, I do have a link to that also. So you can find us there.
Do you guys have any sponsors or anything that help kind of keep it going at all, or it's pretty much just funded by the organization
anglers
itself?
Yeah, we don't pay out 100%. That's one thing. We do pay out it's just a hair over 90%, I think, with how it comes out. But yeah, we've had offers to have sponsors. We just chose not to over the years, just to kind of keep things simple. It's like if you get a big name sponsor, which a couple of them were pretty car dealership I had, or a boat dealership I think I had one time approached me, and I appreciate the offers. It's just we just chose not to. We pay out 90%. We have enough money to pay for our mailings and our buy our stamps for our mailings, and someday I'll probably get to sending them out by email. But we just kind of buy our scales with that, and like I said, I have enough money now to buy a third scale and probably sell one of them just to upgrade. I like to keep upgrading. So
that's and I think a lot of people don't realize that too. It costs money to run tournaments. I mean, scales are not cheap.
Get $300 in permits a year too.
Yeah, so that money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah. We don't get paid to run it. We get to fish our tournament. I do get to fish a tournament. So, but I don't get we don't get a paycheck, to run these tournaments. We do it for fun. I mean, this is what we enjoy doing, and I enjoy doing it. I wouldn't be doing it for 26 years if I didn't. So,
yeah. What would you say directly to somebody who's been thinking about joining but hasn't yet?
Well, more than welcome to give me a call. You have questions, ask them. I mean, no question is, I won't laugh at you by no means. I like getting new people involved. That's kind of why we kind of kept it the way it is and keep the entry fee down at that $150 mark. I mean, we could raise it up and play for more, but it's at this point, I think we still have a competitive tournament series where you're still going to get the good sticks for $150 to get in. You're not going to, but yet the guy that wants to just get into it can afford it. So that's kind of why we stick to it.
Good deal. Well, we'll kind of close it out. We'll do my last segment here, the final cast,
Okay.
and then I'll boot us both out of here, and we'll kind of go from there. So when people leave a CWBA tournament, whether they won or finished dead last, what do you hope they remember about the experience?
Well, I'm hoping that they just have a good experience. Um, win or lose, at the end of the day, when you're fishing, you still learn something. For the most part, I just hope that they had, that when they leave, that they'll say, well, that was a well-run tournament. CWBA takes pride in that. Basically, that's mostly what we want. We just don't want anybody leaving mad. We try to just make sure everybody's happy heading home and safe. That's the main thing.
Good deal. Well, I would definitely urge anybody looking for a very well ran buddy trail to fish. The CWBA is by far set the standard in Wisconsin for what a team tournament should look like. I want to thank you very much for coming on and doing this, Craig. And anytime you've got a burning desire to come on here, and if
Yeah.
you want to push tournaments or anything like that, you're more than welcome. I'd love to have you on again in the spring if you want to, go over a schedule or anything like that too.
Yeah. Just one shout out quick to the Big Muskie Resort that they let us use their facilities on the Chippewa Flowage and the Pioneer on Long Lake. We appreciate that because the landings on them lakes, like a Long Lake, you can't get in and out decent. It's hard to have a tournament there hosted at the landing. So without an organization or a business like that to allow us to have a tournament, use their docks, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on. It was actually kind of fun. One other thing I guess I could add is we do have a couple openings in our Chippewa Flowage. So if anybody's interested, give me a call.
Sounds good. I might even be hitting you up for that. I'm looking for a
Perfect.
few more to do yet this summer.
We always willing to take your money.
I'm always more than happy to donate it.
Yeah, that's tournament fishing is all about.
Yep.
So,
well, thank you very much, Craig.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you much. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching the Timberline Bass Podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, comment, all that normal stuff. Thank you very much for your support.